Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A pleasure to see you all here. L'chaim Victor, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh midbaro. While some people drink wine, I drink water. L'chaim Jack, I don't know what's in your cup. It looks like water, but I don't know if it's water. It's not. Okay, so you got the trick from me? Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, this class tonight is sponsored by the children and the sons-in-law and daughters-in-law of Jack and Esther Hideri in their honor. We want to thank them very much and wish them much of Hatzlacha to them, the whole family, to the whole Klal Yisrael and to the world. Rabotai, tonight I would like to discuss what we see in the street. I'm intrigued. Whatever I see, I analyze. I like to have a perspective, to try something different, something new. And before I open the subject, I would like to first tell you a little conversation I had with someone. That person is an atheist. And we had a conversation and, is this, God doing this? And I'm a religious figure, so obviously I feel that there's a connection with the divine. Hashgacha Pratit, there's something there. There's a lot of messages. There's a lot going on. You could think, a lot of reflection to be done, inner introspection. But obviously when you talk to an atheist, this doesn't go. So then something came to my mind and I said to this person, drop everything. Forget about God, forget about everything. The mission of a human being, any human being in any culture, is always to grow. Business, be it in your relationships, be it in any field, you want to be better. That's a natural part of being human. You want to grow, you want to be better. And the natural way of growing is through experiences. When something happens to you, you grow from it. The winners grow from it. But although you're on the floor, you get up and you keep going. And those experiences, those challenges, those situations, those trials are what make people stronger. And it is just a natural way, a natural reaction to difficulty for the smart people to try to get something out of it. I said, so call it God, call it nature, call it whatever you want to call it. But when the humanity is going through a struggle, there's room for thought and room for improvement due to the situation. This is just a human reaction to a difficulty. He loved it. Because I did not talk about God or spirituality. I just said there's room for improvement always. And this is our mission as human beings, to be better people. And therefore, as a human being, whenever I see a situation, I try to think and to analyze. And Rabotai, there's something striking happening now. Thank God in Florida, we're able to go out. I take my daily walk when I'm tired, daily jog when I'm not so tired. But the daily walk, we wave people on the balconies. Some friends come downstairs. Some others stay upstairs. Whatever the case, each one reacts the way they want. That's okay. But the point is that you meet a lot of people in the street. You see that here it's pretty social, but the social distance on the boardwalk is not the best, to be honest with you, especially during weekends. So a lot of people choose to put the mask on. I had two experiences last week. The first experience, which was funny, is that I was not wearing a mask, and there was several people who passed by and they say hello. And I'm like, who is this? I don't know who the person is. No idea. So what do? You wave back. But then after a while, I got tired of waving back at masks. I'm like, I don't know who the person is. It's very like, you want to know who's saying hi to you, Afterwards, they say, oh, it was nice to see you, somebody to send you a text. I don't remember seeing you, I never ask. You don't see the person. So the person waves at one of the people I was like, look, Shabbat Shalom, but I don't know who you are. I don't know who you are. You could recognize me. I cannot recognize you. This was the first experience that got me like a little shocked. Like you see people coming, you don't know who they are. Ribono shel olam, the stamp of who people are is in the face. No idea who the person was. The second was even more funny. Someone saw me and said, Rabbi, why aren't you wearing a mask? I'm like, I am. He said, I don't see your mask. It's not on your face. I said, it's right here. Look, you can see my mask right here. He tells me, but Rabbi, your mask is not supposed to be on your head. It's supposed to be on your face. So I tell the guy, where's your kippah? He tells me in my pocket. I'm like, well, it's supposed to be on your head, not in your pocket. Anyway, so we're having a lot of fun with these masks these days, seeing people outside, each one reacting in a different way. But it got me thinking because in a more serious way, seeing everyone's face covered was just a point of reflection. What's going on in our lives? And again, it's totally separated from who is doing that. I don't care who is doing that. It doesn't matter at this point. All what matters is that there's room for reflection. And I think there's something tremendous, profound, and deep that we could learn from what is going on while people's faces are covered. I'm going to first share a perspective that is very classic, that I heard from several people because it's pretty evident. And you know what? Not because it's evident and it's classic, it's not good. It is good and it is relevant. I'm going to share it with you for 2-3 minutes. And then I'll go into a totally different perspective. And that one is evident, I'm sure you heard, is that this whole situation with the coronavirus is that this enemy that you don't see and you don't hear could be extremely contagious and could go to the other side of the world, exactly like Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara, you could say something about someone. It used to be more complicated to travel, but these days, Lashon Hara is so easy to travel. It's a text message, it's a voice note, it's an impression that you share on email, and all of a sudden, without even knowing it, it traveled to the other side of the world. And you could ruin someone's parnassa, you could ruin someone's reputation, you could ruin someone's life just by saying this Lashon Hara. Exactly like this virus. You don't see it, you don't control it, and it travels, just silently destroying people's lives. And so this rabbi said, and you know what, there's a similarity also because it says in the Torah, this week's parashat, Tazria Metzorah, is when you put the person in Metzorah, is the leprosy. The leprosy is known to be a consequence of people who speak Lashon Hara. He says it's interesting because when a person is in leprosy, the Torah says, this person cannot mingle with other people. If he doesn't know how to behave in society, doesn't know how to accept others the way they are, and he speaks evil about others, so then go out, go somewhere else, stay in your home. And this rabbi was saying, look, what a similarity that everyone is staying home. So you have this virus traveling like a Lashon Hara. You have people staying at home, not mingling with society, which is another point of similarity. And then he says there's something else. When you see people with a mask on top of their mouth, it says two things. It says you cannot see others. You cannot recognize others and stop judging others because you don't know who is behind that mask. And number two, when they muzzle your mouth with a mask, it gives much less opportunity to speak about others. And therefore, this mask, with the fact that people are staying home, with the fact that there's a virus traveling, is for this rabbi evident that we're talking here about something that has to do with Lashon Hara, and people have to think about how they use their mouth and their place in society. And I found this to be very interesting, classic, but relevant and important. Definitely food for thought. However, I saw this whole mask situation in a whole different light, and I would like to share it with you in the following way. When I was younger, as you already know, I love music. I'm a musician. I learned violin from the age of 5. I switched to piano at the age of 19. I'm very musical. This was, for a nice part of my life, it was part of my life. It still is. And one of the greatest artists who passed away already was Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was a great artist, great singer, great dancer. But there was something that struck me from very young. And that was the insecurity of that human being. That human being, Michael Jackson, was born African-American, a black person, and he decided to transition to white skin. I used to have a friend who used to say, when you take black and white in painting and you try to make a color, it becomes gray. So it's true that Michael Jackson did a lot of work on the pigmentation of his skin to try to look white. It didn't quite work. He had a very interesting tan, a very interesting shade of color on his skin after so many surgeries that he did. And I was always very intrigued. Why would a person want to change the color of his skin? Now, coming to the United States, you understand sometimes that there's a lot of racism in this country, that's for sure. And having said so, I understand why a person from, a person who is a black person would like to be white, because many, many times in society it's not accepted. And that's probably what happened to Michael Jackson. He wanted to be white, he didn't want to be black. Now, Botai, there's a problem when a person is in a situation like this, that a person does not accept who he is or who she is. When you don't accept who you are, there's an internal battle that makes a distinction between two elements. And let me try to explain to you these complicated elements. In life, as we said before, we always need to grow. We always need to change. But there are two kinds of changes. One is called a reform, and one is called a revolution. One is called a new construction, and one is called, when you, for example, you renovate. It's called a renovation. The difference between the two is very simple. When you have a house that you like, but you would like to change the style, so you renovate. The house is still the same house, you just change the colors, you change the style, you change the floor, you may change the furniture. In essence, it's the same house that you made nicer. But then if somebody is very unhappy with that house, the way you do it is that you destroy the house completely and you rebuild. That's not the same house. It's a new house completely. It's not a reform. It's a revolution. In the life of a person, one needs to make improvements 100%. That's why we are here. To become a better version, but of ourselves. But when a person is so unhappy with who he is and wants to become someone else, that's when disasters start. So the change, yes, but what kind of change? A change from who I am to be a better version of myself, or a change from who I am to who I am not. Because I want to be like my friend, because I want to be like this comedian or this artist, or because I want to be like this person that I believe as being the best person. But here comes a big problem, is that the opposite of joy is trying to be someone else. Joy has to be found inside of us, and meaning has to be found inside of our boundaries. And there's so much to be done already inside of who we are, that we don't need to want to be someone else to succeed, but we need to be the better version of ourselves to succeed. When a person is not capable of accepting the bare minimum of even the skin color that God made him, and try to become white instead of being who he is, this is what I call a person who is trying to be someone else. A person who does not accept himself. And we see the rest of the story, ladies and gentlemen. We know how this person who had tremendous talent, he ended with an overdose. He was trying to escape his reality without judging how he got there. It doesn't matter. But he died being someone that he was not. Because when a person has a tremendous amount of difficulty, he or she may decide to go on a cloud, to go in a different dimension that is not here. And when you go into that dimension, you try to escape your reality, thinking that there, on that escape, you may find meaning, but you don't. In that reality, you just escape your real reality. And you go in a dream. But then you come back to reality. And people have difficulty with the realities. And everyone's reality is not the same. Some people's reality is different than others. And some people's reality are really harsh. But the real joy and the real meaning could only be found in our reality. Running away from our reality is never going to be the solution. And here, I would like to share with you that I believe the society that we live in is exactly that problem. Let me explain to you what I think, and then let's see what the Torah says about this, because every concept has to be related to the Torah to see if it's true. In our society, it is very difficult to be allowed to be ourselves. Society, and I'm not talking about Jewish society right now, we'll get to Jewish society in a little bit, but regular society in the modern world, in the Western world, has certain standards of education, of looks, and people suffer a lot from that. Because if you're not like this person who is modeling on Instagram, then you must be somebody of a lower category. Especially for young women, for example, who struggle sometimes with weight or with the way they look, etc. This is fake, and we know it. And how many times even those celebrities are caught by doing changes in the pictures, etc. And they say, look, this is not even the real picture. Photoshop. But yet there's a certain, even measurements that are for people these days. And people could be miserable because society expects certain standards from everyone. But we're not standardized. We're not robots. We're not computers that they all come in the same format and the same color. We're just not that. We're each one unique. I am different than you are, and you're different than the one next to you. And that's the beauty of life. That's why humans are different. That's why humans are considered in the language of the Chachamim like Elokim. We compare humans to like gods. Because you have your own dad. You have your own personality. You are who you are. And when we try to standardize that everyone should be the same, or when society expects everyone to be performing the same way, making the same amount of money and or more, looking something like they expect them, what is the definition of beauty is now not up to me to decide, it's up to the rest of society to tell me what beauty is. Even when we go shopping, we have to have someone else's opinion if it looks good on us. Even if I like it. Am I allowed to like something that the rest of the world doesn't? No, I'm not. That's society today. We're just part of something that we lost our right to be. We're slaves of someone else's look. We're slaves to people's commentaries. We're slaves to how many thumbs up you get. And here with the social media and everything that is going on, we have lost completely who we are allowed to be. So I believe strongly that in a society like this, it makes absolutely no difference who is behind this mask. It doesn't matter anymore if the faces are different, because we don't care anymore if people are different. We expect the same from everyone. There's certain standards for everyone. So when I see people with the face covered, it's a strong reminder of this reality that we're living now. That really, you know what, Rabotai? We don't care who you are behind this mask. No one cares who this person is. Although the only difference really between people is the face. Partzufehem shonim, the Midrash says. Everyone's face is different. Because we are all different, and the face is just showing that we also have different different abilities, different ways of looking at things. But society where we live, unfortunately, doesn't care about that. And since it doesn't care about that, it's the same thing if we see a face or if we don't see a face. So let it be covered. It's the same thing. But when I see a whole world with the face covered, it's very scary. I got very scared. I said, really? Is that the siman? Is that a hint? Again, I don't care where it comes from, but it's time to think. And I'm looking at people without a face, literally people without a face. I'm saying, wow. So really, they're all following trends. This is very scary. So I would like to give you an example of this in the Torah, Rabotai. And what does the Torah think about this? I believe there's a very, very strong message from the most amazing hero we have in the Torah. Rabotai, in the Torah, the one human being who is the most spoken about is Moshe Rabbeinu. And I'm going to make you a description of Moshe Rabbeinu from scratch, from the very beginning. And the ladies in the audience, please think to yourself, would you date a guy like this? Let me give you the description. This is a resume, the curriculum vitae of Moshe Rabbeinu. All right, ready? So Moshe Rabbeinu, first and foremost, is that child that no one wanted to have. Let me explain to you something that it may be evident to some of you, but believe me, again, as a rabbi, sometimes you hear things and you're like, oh my God, how could you say that? So one time I don't remember where it was, if it was people I had in my house, or I don't know, but there was a family and the parents were presenting their kids. This is my kid, this is this. And you know when sometimes there's, between the last kid and the kid before, there's like 10 years or 12 years? And they tell you, oh, that last one is the accident. And you're like, what? Yeah, well, this kid, it was planned otherwise. You know, it happened. That was the unplanned one, the unwanted one. I'm like, how do you say that in front of the kid? This kid is going to grow up with a trauma for life. First big scar in the heart of this person. Your parents never wanted to have you. You were born by accident. I mean, this on an ID, it hurts a lot to know that your parents would have preferred life without you. You know, it feels great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Meanwhile, we know there's no accident. Baruch Hashem. If Hashem gave a neshama to this kid and didn't give neshama to others who want to have kids, it's because there's a reason. But saying it is already like hurtful, very, very hurtful. If this is ever your case, don't believe you're an accident, okay? And if you have kids like this, don't say anything about it. Say everything was planned, all right? Now, having said so, that's exactly the life of Moshe Rabbeinu. You all know the story, Rabotai. Moshe Rabbeinu, his parents did not want to have kids. Why? Paro had said, Kol haben hayilod hayora tashlichuhu. Any boy who is born, we're going to throw him in the Nile River. So Amram, the father of Moshe Rabbeinu, and Yocheved decided, hey, that's it. This is not working. We're not going to have children for him to throw them in the Nile. We're going to stop. That's it. We're not going to even try. And then came the little 6-year-old girl, 5-year-old at the time, Miriam, famously, with courage. She came to her father and she said, you are worse than Paro. Paro lo gazar ela ala zecharim. Paro only decreed on the boys. And here you are preventing even the girls from being born. How do you know who is going to be born? How can you stop from trying having children? Maybe you're going to have a girl. So Paro said only the boys, and you say the boys and the girls are condemned not to be born? These piercing words coming from the honest mouth of a child came straight to the heart of her parents, Amram and Yocheved. And they said how true she is, how right she is. They tried having a child, and I guess they were expecting a girl, right? They were waiting for the girl to be born. It must be a girl, right? I mean, after a speech like this, it must be a girl. And who is burned? Mabruk! It's a boy! Oh, haram, a boy. What are we going to do with this boy now? Lo alenu. This is not, it's not a joke. Paro is going to come and throw this boy in the Nile. First scar in the life of Moshe Rabbeinu. Your parents did not want you to be born. Unwanted child. Life continues with its downs, not its ups for Moshe Rabbeinu. At the age of 3 months, life is impossible with a boy hiding in a house. You know the story. They decided to take this boy, put him in the bassinet, and put him to his luck on the river. Miriam, of course, is watching, making sure that someone rescues this baby, and miraculously, the daughter of Paro rescues this baby. You know the story. But that means that on the curriculum of Moshe Rabbeinu, this unwanted child, this accident child, is now an abandoned child also. Abandoned from birth. His parents put him on a river for his luck. Third point, he was adopted by Bitya bat Paro, the daughter of Paro, who courageously rescued this baby. Being adopted by the enemy is probably one of the most drastic situations that could happen in the crisis, identity crisis in a person. Who are you? Are you Egyptian? Or are you Jewish? Let me tell you a little story that you probably know. From the time of World War II, you know that during World War II, many Jewish babies, kids, were taken by Christian sisters into covenants. On one side, they say, thank you so much for saving the lives of these babies, of these young children. But on the other, the horror of the reality was that after the war, many were honest to give them the opportunity of going back to their faith, but many were not. And one of the missions that Rav Avraham Kahneman, who was the Ponyevich Rav, the rabbi from Ponyevich, who went around Europe trying to rescue these children, was no simple task. Number one, he had to get permission from the principal of the covenant, the school, to be able to try to talk to the kids. Number two, actually, instead of speaking to the kids, he was asking, do you have the list? And they had the list of everything. Every single person, every single kid who came into the covenant to live during the war, they knew exactly who was who. But when he was asking for access, and he was asking for the names, please let me know who's who. Many, many, many times he was denied access, or he was denied the information. He was brushed off by, hey, we don't know who's who, you know. And one time he started crying, didn't know what to do. You know that now there's hundreds of kids in front of you. You know many of them are Jewish, but you don't know who is Jewish. So what did he do? He said, let me try one thing. And he started screaming, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. He was screaming at the top of his lungs, Shema Yisrael. And then he heard a few little voices that said, Mommy, Mommy. Because their mother used to say the Shema Yisrael at bedtime. And with that phrase of Shema Yisrael, he rescued tens of little Jewish children that came back with him. That phrase never gets erased from the heart of many. But in our case, coming back to Moshe Rabbeinu, Bitya bat Paro, the daughter of Paro, that our Chachamim said was a tzaddiket. Number one, for the courage of taking a baby from the Nile. Everyone knows that if there's a baby boy in the Nile, it's a Jewish kid. With what courage, what chutzpah did she take a baby from the Nile and bring him into the house of her father, who decreed against the Jewish people? And like the Chachamim famously say, you think by killing the boys, I'm not going to have a solution to my people, says God? I will make sure that Moshiach Shel Israel, the one who will redeem the Jewish people, will grow up in front of you, on your laps, Paro. He's going to grow up on your laps. He's going to play with your beard. He's going to eat from your plate without realizing this is the guy who's going to make your life miserable. Anyways, this is our man. An unwanted child, abandoned by his parents as a baby, who was rescued and adopted by an Egyptian princess, who grew up to be who knows what. Identity crisis. Am I Egyptian? Am I Jewish? Well, I grew up Egyptian, but my mom, who is not my mom, told me that I was born from my parents whom I never met. What a nice life. And then his life gets much more complicated. Because when he decides to, although being a prince in Egypt, to side his Jewish brothers, because one of the Jewish brothers is getting killed by someone, he's being threatened by an Egyptian, and he comes to his rescue and he kills the Egyptian. At this point, he thinks at least that the Jews are going to accept him. But make no mistake, no one is accepting of Moshe. The Egyptians are looking for him because he killed an Egyptian, showing that he's not an Egyptian. And when he thinks that he's going to get protection by his Jewish brothers are saying, you're Egyptian. You come from the palace of Paro. What do you mean? I killed an Egyptian to save the life of another one. You're not one of us. How could you ever understand our pain when you grew up your whole life since you're 3 months old in the palace of Paro, the one who's making our life miserable? And at this point, Moshe realizes that he's not Jewish and he is not Egyptian. He's nothing. Nobody accepts him. And he's a fugitive now because he's a murderer. So he's looked by the FBI. He's being looked after by the FBI and he has to escape Egypt. So we have a guy who is unwanted child. He is abandoned by his parents. He's adopted by an Egyptian princess. He grows up, he's mixed up what he is, and no one accepts him. At this point, he's a fugitive because he's also a killer. Now, ladies, at this point, would you date somebody like this? What a nice, beautiful life he's had so far. This is a beautiful resume. A shidduch resume like this, he goes straight to junk in your email. He doesn't even make it to the inbox. Rabotai, it's not the end. He runs away from Egypt and he goes to Midian. He goes to Midian and he meets Tzipporah, who is a shepherdess. And she's having trouble with the other shepherds who don't let her give water to her cattle. At this point, Moshe Rabbeinu comes to save her. He tries to help her. And Tzipporah, who thinks she found the love of her life, brings him home. But Yitro, when he sees Moshe, so who is this guy? It's a Mitzri. He's an Egyptian. Yitro himself was a fugitive from Egypt. You remember the story that when Paro wanted to kill the baby boys, one of the 3 advisors was Yitro. And Yitro, who had pity, who had mercy on the Jewish people, decided to leave Egypt. He himself was wanted by the FBI. He was running away from Egypt. And now he says to his daughter, you bringing me an Egyptian who says that he's a fugitive from Egypt? This sounds very fishy. I don't want to have anything to do with it. They're going to find him, they're going to find me. I don't want of him. What did he do, says the Midrash? Yitro took Moshe and put him in a dungeon for 7 years. 7 years in a dungeon, Hazit Moshe. Midrash. 7 years in a dungeon, and every day Tzipporah would quietly bring food to Moshe Rabbeinu so he doesn't die. After 7 years, he comes out of there. Rabotai, this is a tragic life of someone who is hated by all. Nobody accepts him, not even himself. He's running away from his own reality, really. He doesn't know who his parents are. Nobody wanted him to be born. He's abandoned. He's a fugitive. He's adopted by Egyptians, but not wanted by Egyptians, not wanted by anyone. This is the hero of the Jewish people. To add to the problem, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu approaches him and tells him, Moshe, I want you to take the Jewish people out. What does he tell him? God? Excuse me? I mean, do you know my record, my track record? I mean, look at my track record. And not only that, we forgot to mention something, Rabotai, on purpose. Ki chevad pe uchvad lashon anochi. I have a heavy mouth, meaning I have a heavy lip. He had a handicap. He couldn't talk well. He was stuttering. He has a lisp. He has a problem in his tongue also. Kvad pe ukvad lashon. 2 problems. You go to any speech therapist, they tell you, I'm sorry, this case is too complicated. I cannot help it. He has a double problem. He can't even talk. Rabotai, why is the hero of the Jewish people carrying such a heavy load? I would like to suggest that Moshe Rabbeinu has this conversation with God. When Moshe says to God, I cannot talk, get someone else. He says this after God showed him the signs. You remember the 3 signs. He takes water, transforms it into blood. He takes a stick, he transforms it into a snake. He puts his hand inside on his chest, and he comes out with leprosy. He puts it back in, he comes out with nothing. At this point, Moshe Rabbeinu says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Lo ish devarim anochi, I cannot talk. I think it's hinted in that he's asking Hashem, hold on, I have a problem. I don't understand. You make so many miracles. Can't you fix this? You want me to go talk? Can't you fix my mouth? You make so many miracles. You can't fix my problem? Listen to the answer of God. Vayomer Hashem, Misam Pela Adam. I read in English. Who makes a mouth for men? Or who makes one dumb or deaf or able to see or blind? Is it not I, Hashem? What is he saying? Moshe is asking him, I don't understand. I can't talk. Would you please fix that? What did he tell him? Who made you like this? Me. That's the answer? I would be Moshe, I would say, excuse me, maybe there was a miscommunication here. I understand you did that, and I'm asking you please to fix that. And God says, no, I don't want to fix that. I want you to go the way you are and succeed. Don't change. I like you the way you are. And I have a purpose for that, by the way. The Chacham explained, he wanted Moshe Rabbeinu with all his problems to be speaking to the Jews, to the Egyptians. Why? Because they didn't go out because he was a great speaker, because he was very inspirational, because blah, blah, blah. 0. Nobody liked him. He couldn't speak well. He was not a good speaker. And with all of that took them out, it must be God's hand, not Moshe's speech. That's the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu needed him to be like this. But he's telling him, who gave you the mouth and who gave you the problem? I did, which means I'm asking you, please, to embrace your problem, to take it with you, and to make the best of it. And by the way, this was the greatest move, to have the most problematic human being be the most inspiring redeemer of the Jewish people. And you know why? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Well, there was a broken kid who came to Moshe Rabbeinu and said, I have a problem with my parents. Moshe Rabbeinu went through much worse than that. When he said, I don't feel that they love me, he said, oh, I have a quite nice story to tell you about that. They never wanted to have me. Or he says, they want to abandon me. Well, I was abandoned by my parents. It's someone that anyone with any problem on earth could relate with, because he went through much more difficulty. That's the beauty of Moshe Rabbeinu, embracing his problems, trying to help everyone with those. That's Moshe Rabbeinu, accepting who he is, not to try to change skin color. Rabotai, here the Torah is showing us that when a person accepts himself, he has a chance to succeed. But the solution is inside of you, with what you have, not with what you don't have. Rabotai, we live in an era, like we said before, that people do not accept who they are, but they try to fit in to whatever box society has put for them. And Moshe Rabbeinu is telling you, don't do that. You are who you are. And God is saying, I gave you a problem. You got to embrace it. Embrace this problem. It's going to do good to you. You're going to see. Try to grow with it. Try to grow not by denying it, but by facing it. This is how you become a Moshe Rabbeinu. And when you see people masked, it's very scary, because it's a society that does not accept people who are different. I would like, at this point, to share with you something. Netflix has a new series called Unorthodox. I have not watched it, and I will not watch it. Frida is getting all nervous. I said I'm not going to watch it, but let me explain to you why I'm going to speak about this. In 2014 or 2015, Deborah Feldman wrote a book called Unorthodox. I read the book. I read the book 5 years ago, and I'm going to tell you why. But 6-7 years ago, for some reason, and maybe the wave continues, but there was a wave of many ex-religious young people who came to Miami. And don't ask me how, and they ended up in my office. Not together. One at a time, I would get a phone call. Hey, Rabbi, my name is whatever. I'm in Miami. I would like to have a meeting with you. I said, no problem. Please come have a meeting with me. And then they would tell me their story, married, not married, boy, girl, whatever it was, who come from very, very religious background and dropped everything. And they were in Miami. Miami is the address for all the rebels, including ourselves. So we are here. And they found an ear, maybe. And they would come to my office, and I had a lot of conversations with them. And I was fascinated by, I would give them a lot on their side. I was like, wow, how did you have the courage to do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, I was trying to be understanding also of their situation. How do you get the courage, especially when you come from a Hasidic background, something like this? You come from a very insular, society, very, very, very religious. How do you one day, slam the door and say goodbye? So we had a lot of conversations, and just then, in 2014 or 15, that book came out. And that book, for the ones who don't know, is the story of, basically one more story of a girl who was married from Satmar society in Williamsburg, and ran away from her marriage, from her life, from everything. She had a tough life. She did have a regular life also. She didn't grow up with parents. She grew up with her grandparents. She had a tough life. I'm not going to go through the book. Again, I don't know the series. The series is probably not true, not accurate, but the book is her life. And that's just the description of her life. She's allowed to share it with the world if she wants to. She wrote a book. And I was reading the book to know what was the problem. How do you, it's better than just the 1 hour conversation. Why did she what was wrong with the system? How did she find that she didn't have the answers to her questions, etc.? It was fascinating. To be honest with you, I was trying to find some material of how to help these kids. And one of the biggest problems that I found was that, to be honest with you, many of the questions that she has, I was like, Chaval, I didn't have a conversation with this girl before she made that decision of dropping everything. Why? I'll tell you why. Because the questions she had were not so hard. Maybe in her society, she was not allowed to ask them. Maybe no one around her accepted her questions. But I said, if I had a one-on-one with this girl, I remember telling my wife, Haram, I should have met this lady before she wrote the book. And I would have given some ideas. I said, by the way, if she crossed the bridge from Williamsburg to Manhattan, you have some very smart, more intellectual rabbis that maybe could give him the answer to her questions or some ideas. And then after that, she should decide whatever she wanted to do. I was really, really aggravated, but like sad. I was sad because of that story. It was really like hurting us. If I had a way to reach out to these people and say, hey, I have something I could give you maybe that you didn't have. But it didn't happen. Making a series out of an experience like this is extremely negative because it portrays a wrong message, of course, of the society. In general of the Jewish people, more specifically about the Hasidic people. Again, I did not watch this series and I'm not intending to watch it. But from reading the book, I could imagine that they portray the Hasidim like the most negative people. I heard some bits and pieces from people who called me, and that's why I'm speaking about this. This is a series, which means it's a movie. A movie, by definition, you have to do something appealing to your public. You have to do something that is going to call the attention, something that is, it's more dramatic than what it is. Now, although, again, she has her life, but making such a dramatic way how to describe something like this, to make such a negative picture of the Jewish people, to make such a sad picture of the Hasidic world. It's not, I went to many Hasidic weddings. Some things are weird, I understand. They have their own customs, whatever. It's not the way we do it, but fine. We also do things, I guess, that they're gonna think it's very weird to have the Hazan start singing in the middle of the chuppah. They don't do these things. Okay, fine. So we all have our things. But even if we don't do the simcha dance, with the girl with the garter like this, it's a very happy moment, and that's how they do it, and that's okay. They're allowed to be different. They're allowed to be the way they want. By doing something like this, by exposing this on Netflix, and clearly trying to belittle a whole community, I think, is a tremendous chilul Hashem, obviously. But that's not my thought for tonight. My thought for tonight is, let's go back to the masks and to our own societies, our own communities. Be it Hasidic or not, it's true, Hasidim are a little bit more insular and a little bit more closed-minded maybe, but it's really the same for us. Do we truly cherish and respect when we have challenging children, when we have kids who sometimes have good questions that we don't know how to answer? I would like to say that sometimes we're either not equipped with giving them the right guidance, or maybe we're not honest enough to embrace them. And I'll tell you personally that I've had a lot of people who come from the schools we love, from very religious schools, and they ask me sometimes questions, and I jump on those questions, and I welcome them, and I tell them, what an amazing question. It's an incredible question. Why didn't you ask it from your Rebbe, from your teacher, from your rabbi, whatever it is? And they tell me, no, I can't ask these questions. My question is, why not? We encourage questions. The whole Haggadah is a conversation of question-answer between a father and a son. Because we encourage when the questions are good. Unless we have a new expectation of our children, of our society, of our religious world, that will be very similar to the Western world. But there's one way. It's standardized. It's only one hashkafa. There's only one possibility. And guess what? That's anti-Jewish. Because we are meant to be each one with our own kochot, with our own diversity, with our own ways of thinking within the frame of the Torah, to try to understand it. I am different than you. You are different than your friend, and your husband, and your wife. You're different than your family. We're all different. And that's why we were created a whole world. Olam Maleh, we're each on an Olam Maleh, which means that by definition, we do not wear a mask. We do not look the same, and we do not think alike. And guess what? That's the beauty of our communities. Within a system, you're allowed to be yourself. And if we suppress that luxury, then we're falling prey to the society. And we're putting masks on faces. And we don't want to put masks on faces because our faces are meant to be open, because we're supposed to be ourselves. And I feel bad for these kids who are being systematically shushed because they're not allowed to ask the questions, or they don't feel comfortable enough. If they feel that they're not allowed to ask the questions, I mean, maybe we don't make them comfortable enough to ask the questions. It is our job to make them comfortable to ask the questions. When you have a question, come and talk about it. Approach the people you trust and ask the questions. Have a conversation. You know why? Because you're allowed to be yourself. You're allowed to be different. You're allowed to have your own thought process. And if we don't do that, then we fall prey to the pressures of society. They expect every boy and girl, every man and woman to look exactly the way society expects them to look and to behave the way society expects them to behave. And it's sometimes good, but many times not. We can't have masks on our faces. And that's why I call this class the treasure that is hidden behind the masks. Because behind those masks, we all have a different face. And if we all have a different face, the Chachamim tell us, Keshem shepartzufem shonim, kach deotem shonot. The same way the faces are different, so too the mentalities are different. And if God made different faces, it's because God cherishes different mentalities and different ways of seeing life. And we should be embracing that. And that is my message tonight. We will not fall prey to that. We need to be embracing. We need to be respecting of diversity of one another. And we have different ways of thinking. And that's okay. It's not only okay, that's welcome. And it's not only welcome, that's the only way Torah survives. Because Torah is a discussion. Torah is a conversation. Every book of Gemara, every page of Gemara is full of conversations. It's only about respecting someone else's perspective, of course, within the Torah, but to not try to make everyone the same. I know our school system is lacking on that because you have to have one teacher for X amount of boys, X amount of girls, X amount of kids together. You need to have that. So it is standardized. But as parents, we should be very careful with that. We know our kids are all different. How can we standardize everything? We cannot. Each child is different. Each person is different. And we need to respect that. Let's remove the masks of mentalities and grow into who we are meant to be. The same way Moshe Rabbeinu accepted who he was, being so different from a regular person, a regular expected person. And he succeeded because he accepted who he was. He became the better version, not of who he was not, but who he was, unlike other people who are trying always to please others or to be looking good in the eyes of others. This is not what we're trying. We're trying to be looking good to our own eyes and looking good to the eyes of God and trying to be the best version of ourselves. That's where we find true joy and true meaning. Victor, remove the mask, please. Thank you very much. We love you all. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you to the sponsors. Be well, be healthy. Besorot Tovot, Yeshuot v'Nechamot. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Have a good night.